Hey everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the APU and Industry Career Webinar. My name is Regine and I'm your host for this session. We're having a series webinar from now until 20th June covering different topics, so please stay tuned in our space. I would also like to invite you to check out our APU Open Day that's happening now until 20th this month. Our counselors are ready to guide you through all the options that are available for your further studies. For more information, please visit our website and follow our Facebook page. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our two speakers, Prof. Dr. Andy Seddon, a Senior Director in Partnership and Standards at APU, and Prof. Elizabeth Hathaway, Associate Dean in Faculty of Computing, Engineering and Media at De Montfort University. They will be covering on the topic of Double Your Advantage, Dual Awards with De Montfort University. Let's welcome Prof. Andy and also Prof. Elizabeth. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Regine, and good morning as well, because for Liz, it is actually about just after 9 a.m. So thank you, Liz, for getting up early this morning to be with us.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon.
9 o'clock might not be that early, I suppose, but anyway. So yes, my name is Andy Seddon. I'm the Senior Director for Partnerships and Standards at APU. And Liz and I have been working together for a number of years on a number of different projects. Transnational education has been very big in the UK for many years. And we started developing those projects together 15 or 20 years, as a long time ago. Anyway, so we're now very pleased that DMU are working with APU on the dual degree programs. We're going to take you through a little bit of information about that in a minute, but Liz, is there anything you want to add at this point?
No, I don't think so, Andy. As you said, we've worked together a long time, so we're very familiar with, obviously, the education system in Malaysia and understand it very well. But I think we just crack on with the slides and the presentation.
Thank you very much. So, as we say, we are a partnership in quality. Quality is provided in partnership. So we work together to make sure that students who complete our degrees are able to go out and get some good jobs. Basically, that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that students are able to develop their skills, enhance them, become global work ready. So if we just jump to the next slide, some of you might know a little bit about APU, some may not. So just as a bit of a reminder for you, we are in Malaysia, and we have around about 12,000 students. If we just go to the next click, we'll get the next bubble coming up. Okay, thank you. So we have around about 12,000 students, and they come from over 130 different countries and territories. Now that makes APU one of the most international universities within Malaysia. When we hear about DMU, you'll hear about their international side as well. And we're quite similar. Again, it's a perfect match between APU and DMU. At APU, we have our 8 major areas: business, management and media, accounting and finance, mathematics and quantitative studies. You can read the rest: computing, technology, engineering. And one of our more recent areas is media and design. We are starting our psychology programs as well. They will sit temporarily within the media management and media area. And so that's another exciting area for us to develop into. You've probably heard that we are a premier digital tech university as well, and that goes back to our roots as APIT. We started as an IT institution, forging links with industry, making sure that the graduates from our IT programs were able to get some really good jobs and to fill the gaps that were in the market. If we just move to the next slide, our heritage has helped us to extend this. We are a 5-star university through Setara, and that's the Malaysian ratings system. We also take part in the QS rankings. First year for us to jump into the system properly. We've previously moved into the STARS area, and we're really happy to be able to say that some of the areas that students are more linked to, so facilities, teaching, those are key to us. We want to make sure we're providing the right sort of education for students, so teaching is really important. The facilities that we provide to those students are also important. We can be great at teaching, but if the facilities aren't there, you might have knowledge, but you don't have any practical skills. So the facilities and teaching go hand in hand. Looking at our internationalization side, again, we are very international, and that also helps. So we've been ranked #1 in Malaysia for inbound, and that's actually become #1 inbound in Asia. Top 50 universities for international faculty. Within Asia itself, we're in the top 350, and we are in the top 10 Malaysian private universities. We mentioned the employability, and I just realized I haven't got that on the slide. I think we've talked about employability in a number of different areas, but for the last 2 years, we've achieved 100% employability for all of our students. Again, that goes down to how we develop the programs and how we ensure the skills are embedded in there. So that's a little bit about APU. We'll talk about the degrees in a moment. I'm going to hand over to Liz, and she can tell you a little bit on the next slides about DMU before we come back and talk about the program specifically. So over to Liz.
Yeah, so thanks, Andy. I think it's important to outline really the sort of alignment that there is between DMU and APU. I mean, we've got a very long history, although as outlined on the slide, we've been an institution for just over 150 years, actually 151 years this year. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic last year, we couldn't celebrate our 150th anniversary. So we're anticipating that we're going to be able to do that hopefully in the very near future. Hopefully. But just a little bit of background. So in 1870, which is an awful long time ago, we were established as Leicester School of Arts, and fundamentally that's where our roots and heritage come from. In 1969, we were designated as a polytechnic, and more recently we were awarded university status in 1992, and that's when most post polytechnics became universities in the UK. So we are what we would call a modern university. Next click, please. Yeah, so we're very large universities, so we've got over 29,000 students, and similar to APU, we have 29,000 students, but those are from around about 130 countries. So in the UK, we're classified within the top 15 in terms of size, and of that student population, around about 80% of them are UK students, and 20% of our students are international students from those 130 countries. So we've got a very big international cohort of students. Andy mentioned the TNE and our transnational education, and we do have quite a wide range of transnational education partners. As a university, we've got 25 collaborative partners, ranging from the typical franchise type awards through to the dual provision that we have with APU. And importantly, I think we've got over 280 external examiners. And what would that actually mean for you? Well, what it means is that we've got external examiners from other universities, both in the UK and across the world, to endorse the standards of the work that both our students on campus and our students within our transnational education provision and our UK partners as well do to make sure that it's internationally benchmarked. Just a little bit of background in terms of the academic areas. We've got 4 large faculties. So as you can see on the slide, arts, design and humanities, business and law, computing, engineering and media, which is the faculty that I'm actually in at the moment, and health and life sciences. So really, as a university in the UK, we're what is classified as a comprehensive university with a very diverse portfolio of awards. The only things that we don't offer at DMU are medicine and veterinary type subjects. And so if you look at our portfolio and APU's portfolio, I think it's very much aligned in terms of the work that we do. All 4 faculties actually do work with APU on the dual award portfolio that we have. An important element as well is around our teaching excellence. And DMU was ranked gold in the first round of assessment by the British government under something called the Teaching Excellence Framework, and that was back in 2017. And actually, you can look at this, it's all in the public domain. We scored very highly in all key metrics, but we're particularly proud of a couple of things, really. Firstly, we were ranked first in the UK for BAME graduates, and what we mean by BAME is Black, Asian and minority ethnic students. So we do have a very large population of those students. And we were first for those graduates in skilled employment. And obviously that's what it's all about in terms of graduates getting into, you know, highly paid graduate employment. We were the second best performing university across the UK, again for BAME, but also for disabled students across the 4 metrics. And we were the 5th best performing university across all of the 6 core metrics. But as I say, that's in the public domain. In 2019, we're also ranked by the Sunday Times as first for social inclusion. We also embrace something called the University's Sustainable Development Goals, and we're UN Global Lead, so the United Nations Global Lead for SDG 16, which is peace and social justice. And really that's quite important because again it aligns quite closely to some of the work that we're doing with APU. As a UK university, we also basically are involved in a number of research areas, and we've got 5 key research areas: living in a digital society, net zero, which again obviously is very important from the point of view of, you know, the environment, equality and social justice, lifelong well-being, and creative and heritage industries. Next slide, please. Okay, so as we've said, just to sort of round up, we've got a long history of creativity, particularly in teaching art, but as I say, we're also a comprehensive university, similar to APU, and unfortunately, you can't see some of these facilities just at the moment. We do have excellent facilities in our creative technology studios, our engineering laboratories, robotics lab, and some of the fashion workshops. And in a little while, we'll show you a video of some of the laboratories and also some of the student work. We've got 18 National Teaching Fellows, which again is a government-led initiative recognising the quality of our lecturing staff and placing us in the top 3 of UK universities of National Teaching Fellows. And all our courses are actually professionally accredited. For example, ACCA, CIMA, REBA for our actual degrees, IMECI, meaning students gain significant exemptions from professional qualifications after graduation. Next slide, please. And finally from me, and again, I'm not really going to go into all of the detail, these are some of our accolades really, in terms of awards, in terms of our ranking and where we are in the in the UK higher education sector. Importantly as well, though, we also work with some blue chip companies, and there's just some examples of those in the slide. And much of our success, I think, is not just down to the high quality of teaching, learning and research, but also the launch of a number of groundbreaking initiatives designed to help our students get experience and make them better prepared for entering the world of work. And just some examples of this is something called Front Runners, which is an opportunity for students to get paid internships on campus alongside their studies, so we can develop their professional and interpersonal skills. We've got something called DMU Graduate Champions. So again, it's an opportunity for our own graduates to do work on campus, to undertake paid, and it's paid, and it's also an opportunity for them to work with external employers, again, to enhance their work experience, but it's really an internship for graduates. We've got something called DMU Global, and we'll talk about that in a little while, which is students from across all the faculties, an opportunity to enhance their internationalism, and we've had a range of trips when we could travel to do that. And we've got something called Square Mile India, which is an initiative to use our academics and student experience to make a real difference to the lives of people in some of the poorest countries and most vulnerable families in the region of particularly Gujarat in India, which is one of the western states in India. So next slide, and I'll pass back over to Andy, and I think we're going to go for a bit of a double act now.
We will do, but no major jokes. As we get the next slide appearing, we'll tell you a little bit about the development of the partnership between APU and DMU. We started, like I say, Liz and I have known each other for a long time, but the connection between APU and DMU started at the beginning of 2017. So we're getting close to 5 years worth of partnership now. We started with general progression pathways. Now, when you're looking at the quality of a program, you don't want a student to do 1 or 2 years of a degree, and then if they want to travel to Australia, New Zealand, UK or Europe or anywhere in the world, you do 2 years at APU and then you go somewhere else and they say, thank you, yes, you can come and join us, but you now have to start from year 1. Well, that means you've wasted 2 years, but it also calls into question the quality of that degree. If you can do 2 years and transfer, well, a UK university, an Australian university would not say, come and join us for our 3rd and final year of the degree if the first 2 years were no good. So pathway agreements are the sorts of things that we try and put in place for all of our programs. And this is one of the first things we started to do with DMU, put in place the pathways for students to complete the diploma program at APU and transfer to the 2nd year of the DMU degree. If they were doing the 1st year of our degree at APU, they could transfer and do the 2nd year at DMU. And similarly, we had the agreements in place for students who do the first 2 years of the degree and then transfer to DMU to do the final year. So this was a good starting point to show that the quality of the education was correct. Liz, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, add about the general progression agreements. I mean, I think it is important to recognise the sort of comparability to what APU at that time when we put the progression agreements in place. But I would say that it's all of the degrees at APU that we've been able to develop general progression agreement for. So there's no exceptions in terms of that. And also we've done quite a significant, what we would call an academic mapping of the diploma awards and foundation awards at APU to make sure that students potentially could come onto the 1st year of the programs in the UK, should they so wish to do. So, you know, it is about mapping those standards Sorry to interrupt, Andy. Well, not really, but there we go.
No, I'm used to it, so don't worry. Yes, so those progression agreements are a great way to get things started. Oh, Liz, you've gone full screen on mine.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think we lost. Oh, okay, the slides are back. Sorry. Okay, so we started with the progression agreements, and then the partnership started to evolve. Liz mentioned the DMU Global activities, and although at APU our global activities are not as advanced as DMU, we're learning from DMU. And the picture that just popped up onto the bottom of the slide is a group of students that came to APU, obviously before the pandemic. This was early 2019, and the group's actually a group of psychology students. Their lead academic, who is on the front row of that picture in the white shirt, John, is actually from Malaysia. So even although it's a DMU group of students, they came to APU with the Malaysian. So again, we're trying to form that, that connection and promote that internationalization, cultural diversity, and intercultural awareness. Liz also mentioned some of the projects that they work on with the UN. We've been working on projects with Erasmus, which is the European group, and through them we have something called the Friends project, which has led to the development of a module which currently the computing students take, which is the Intercultural Awareness and Cultural Diversity module. I actually started teaching that with my co-hosts for that module this morning. So Swan and Jason, if you're watching, thank you. We started that at 8:30 this morning, and another 350 students joined that particular module. Again, it's to promote intercultural awareness, cultural diversity, and help students become international members of the community.
Yeah, can I just add, Andy? I mean, obviously, the travel at the moment is extremely difficult. So what we've done at DMU is actually look at how we can possibly do this using technology in a digital way. And one of the things that we have started to think about is we have something called a film festival that we've run in Indonesia previously. And we're looking at how we can possibly do that with APU going forward. And that's just one example. We're also looking at opportunities to do some sort of DMU global type activities with cyber. There's lots of things that we can do now in this sort of new world and the new way of working that still gives that students that sort of international exposure and that international experience, but actually out having to travel in the same sort of way that previously in the old ways of working perhaps we did.
If you think about it, the students or prospective students who are watching, some of your parents might not be going to the office at the moment, wherever you are in the world. Some of them might have done a lot of traveling as well, but now they're in conference calls. We were talking to somebody this morning from Uzbekistan, and it was mentioned that by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when I travel to the UK. And so from 3 o'clock most days, I then start having meetings with our partners at DMU. So that you can still be international without that travel. And so this virtual module that we have, or the MOOC, allows students to develop those skills without having to travel, although obviously it's nice to travel when you can. So moving to the dual development. So we then decided that it would be a good idea to have these dual degrees. And so together we worked through the evolution of the programs to involve some of the academic excellence that DMU has with the excellence that we already had at APU. So we just jump to the next slide. Okay, so we said earlier, we want our education to be quality assured. We want to have excellence there. And we need to make sure that we're meeting all of the standards. These degrees are being governed by two sets of standards. One will be MQA, or the Malaysian Qualifications Agency in Malaysia. The other one, the QAA, the Quality Assurance Agency in the UK. And both APU and DMU have to make sure that they're meeting their own requirements, because if we don't, then the qualifications will not be attested within the home country, and then they're going to be worthless. So we have to make sure that they are approved through this joint code. So it's the Quality Code for Higher Education for the Assurance of Academic Quality and Standards in Higher Education. So we've worked together. Liz pointed out, how many external examiners did you say you had, Liz?
280, and that's for obviously our on-campus provision and all of our collaborative provision, which now obviously includes the dual provision at APU. I think at the moment for APU, we've probably got something like the order of about 25 examiners, but we'll explain that.
So we have examiners from the UK, but we also have examiners based in Malaysia. Again, we've got to meet both sets of quality standards. So we have Malaysian examiners, we have UK examiners. We work with our partners in DMU, and we make sure that we review the assessments. If we give out an assessment and basically say, can you spell your name correctly? Fantastic, you can. You now get a grade A+. That would be, I'm suggesting, a little bit too easy. But if you're a first year student and you're asked to write a 5,000 word essay, that might be a little bit too much. So the external examiners, as well as the examiners at APU and at DMU, look at each assessment to make sure that they're appropriate and they can be done in the appropriate amount of time, whether you're in the first year, second year, or final year student. So they're looking at what we call learning outcomes. And that is the key to every piece of education. If you meet the outcomes, you can then progress, and you know you will be employable at the end.
Can I just add as well? Yeah. Sorry, Andy, sorry. I was just going to add as well, I mean, in the UK, the idea or the concept of an external examiner is actually a requirement from the Quality Assurance Agency. In some countries, it isn't a requirement. So every university in the UK, irrespective of whether you're doing a diploma through to a PhD, a doctoral qualification, you will have external examiners looking at your assessments and what we would call peer reviewing those assessments. And it's really important because of the standards that we're trying to achieve across the sector in the UK.
Yeah, so Liz mentioned that some countries don't need to have external examiners, and one country in particular is Australia. There is no requirement for Australian universities to have external examiners. They benchmark their standards internally, which is absolutely fine. And some of them do have optional external examiners, so they opt into a process where they can do that benchmarking, but it's not a requirement for Australia. Whereas within Malaysia, within the UK, the external examiners have to be there because, as Liz was saying, we want to make sure that we're benchmarking within the environment that the program's running. The benefit of this dual degree is that we're not just benchmarking in Malaysia. We are now benchmarking with the UK standard. And that, again, elevates the quality of the program that you will be studying. So it's not only approving the assessments, but some students will say, you know why I failed my degree? Why did I fail my module? It was because the lecturer doesn't like me. Now, when you have appropriate processes in place, that can't happen. We do our marking anonymously. Obviously, if you're doing a presentation, it'd be very difficult to say, wear a mask and do a presentation, although you could do that at the moment. But we would know who you are doing a presentation. But for written work, for exams, they will be done anonymously. So you can't get somebody saying I failed because the lecturer knew it was me and reduced my marks. But then we also have a second round of internal moderation, and that's somebody else at APU that then has oversight of the marking and makes sure that the marks are appropriate. So there'll be something called a marking scheme, and that will say, if you answer this way, you're going to get an A grade. If you answer this way, you'll get a B grade, and so on. So that's done internally. So that's stage 2. Then it goes to the 3rd and 4th stage, which is where the DMU examiners and the UK examiners will also look. Now, I said we have students from 130 different countries and territories. Depending on where those students come from, one, the people in the UK won't know who the students are. 2, even if they saw the names, they might get a little bit confused because they would have no idea how to pronounce them. So even if you were talking about a student, there's no way you could then say, it's because we know student X. So the standards and the processes are there to make sure that marks are fair and consistent for everybody. But we went another step further. The UK system and the Malaysian system normally grade and mark and award degrees based on different sets of regulations. We're allowed to have a joint set of regulations, and Liz and I worked on that for months. We got there and both parties have agreed that those regulations can be used, and it's a combination of concepts from the UK as well as the grade point system from Malaysia. Liz, did you want to add anything?
No, I was going to, but you said it, so.
Okay, I could read your mind. Okay, no, I can't actually. Yeah, wish I could. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Again, some more when it appears. This is what you might have seen in the brochure. Again, it talks about the programs. You can see pictures of the campus. The campus is really nice, I have to say. I've been there many times. It's a little chilly in the winter, shall I say? But as long as you're wrapped up warm, you'll be absolutely fine.
It's a little chilly in the summer as well.
Yeah, yes. I have to say, after my last visit, I did borrow a jacket off a colleague at DMU. I packed it into my suitcase because I needed it to go to the airport. I brought it back to Malaysia, and I've still got it. I'm not sure when he's going to get that jacket back, but as soon as the travel windows open, it will be returning to him. Anyway,
I was just going to say, Andy, that I think obviously we're talking about dual degree, so you'll get a degree from APU, and should you be interested in this, and also a degree from DMU. But there is actually no requirement to travel to the UK to study. Everything can be done in Malaysia, and I know the little bubbles are going to come up in a minute if we just. Because of the way that we've developed the partnership, the way that we've developed the degree programs, and the fact that we've done this sort of together, there is actually no requirement for you to travel to the UK. So you can do the degree in its entirety in Malaysia. It would be very nice for you to come to the UK and to get that experience, but it isn't necessary.
Yeah, so if we just get that next 2 clicks, then that will appear on the slide. I hope.
No, it won't.
Okay. I was going to say, but when it does eventually appear, it looks very nice. I spent hours putting those 2 bubbles on. But the other thing is you have to get the semesters to align as well. So in the UK, there will be an intake around about September, October time. There's a second semester that runs around about February, thereabouts. I can see Liz nodding, thank you. Whereas in Malaysia, we have multiple entry points. So although sometimes you might want to travel and spend some time at DMU, it might elongate your study, because if you finish your study in, let's say, March, the next opportunity is going to be September. But you get your summer holidays. There's no real issue there. But again, you can do all of the work in Malaysia, but there are opportunities subject to maybe having to wait a little bit of time before you can move on. At this point, I'd be hoping we could move to the next slide. Oh, there you go. Those are the 2 bubbles I was mentioning. We can move on to the next one.
Yeah, so that video, I think I mentioned it earlier on, is basically a showcase of some of the work that our students have undertaken and produced, just to sort of give you a flavour of the types of things that we would be looking at when we're doing this type of activity. It's also just a little bit around the sort of the work that comes out of my faculty. So back over to you, Andy.
Okay, thank you. There are some questions that have been popping up, which we'll answer in a moment, because they might be answered as we go through the next couple of slides. So double the qualification, doubling your advantage, but why is it really that useful? So the 2 qualifications, as you said, will allow you to demonstrate that the qualification is equivalent to the UK standards. But that's going to be something that the employers are going to be really impressed with. You're able to bring in some of the UK education while studying in Malaysia. And so that's one of the questions that we actually had here. Yi Jun with the current hybrid technology, can the students attend classes in Malaysia instead of at DMU in the UK? Well, yes. You will be able to study in Malaysia and you get that DMU degree. So there's no need for you to actually go. And where possible, we will be working on, again, it's to do with time zones, some input from the UK lecturers as well into the degrees. Now, DMU have got something called DMU Replay. I don't know whether you want to mention a little bit about that, Liz.
Sorry, Andy, it was breaking up. What did you ask? I've got a bit of an echo.
It was, I said, you might want to say a little bit about DMU Replay.
Yeah, so DMU Replay is basically a platform that we use to as a learning tool, really, for students, so that they're in a position to be able to replay their lectures, undertake some of the sort of learning away from the classroom, so they can do it at their own leisure, as opposed to sitting in situ in the lecture theatre or in the classroom and not really taking it on. So it's an opportunity for students to learn at their own pace. Is probably the best way of describing it. Sorry, I've got a real bad feedback, so all I can do is hear myself.
I've got the same problem here as well, but I don't think it's quite as bad. So I'll keep moving on. And yes, so we want to try and incorporate some of the work that DMU does, and where possible, we will then try to incorporate some of those DMU replay videos into sessions. But we will have a lot of virtual, if not physical, travel from the academics from DMU as well. We have a number of sessions that we run where the academics will be giving guest lectures to students, where there will be visits from some of the senior members of staff. So Liz visits quite a lot, and she attends a lot of meetings with us. You might think too many, but anyway, we have lots of meetings, and we try and share practice, we share ideas, and we share resourcing. So it's a good way to combine everything into a single qualification. If we just move to the next slide. Okay, so through partnership, what we've actually done is we've worked with DMU, as we say. We both value diversity, both of staff and of the student body. We want to make sure that students are getting the best opportunities they can, and that means getting inputs from a whole range of academics. You might hear from some of the other sessions that we run that the majority of the academics at APU are from a professional background. They can bring in the real world examples, and they can provide those hard-hitting examples for you, so you can see where your work is actually going to be used. Having the diverse student population allows students to be able to enhance their intercultural awareness, and that again, when you graduate, will allow you to move into any workplace. I think long gone are the days where you would travel and to work with people in different countries. You are going to be working through, whether it's Zoom, Teams, whatever, but you'll be working with people on projects around the world. And you're going to be having to work with those people, so you have to understand intercultural differences. Then the internationalisation of the curriculum has been achieved through that joint development and the tandem work between the DoD and the APU teams to identify the best practice from both APU and DMU, and to combine that into the degrees that we're offering today. Those developments continue. We have meetings regularly where we look at the joint academic side of what we do, and we develop and we enhance the programs through input from industry, through feedback from students, and obviously governed by any of the requirements by MQA in Malaysia or QAA in the UK. So it is a partnership, teamwork effort to get to where we are today. If we just jump to the next slide, then we can maybe jump back to some of the questions. Is there anything you want to add before we try and answer the questions?
No, I think it's important that we try and answer some of these questions, Andy.
Okay. So one question was, if I did a one-year degree at APU, a one-year degree, or I'll paraphrase the question. So this person's asking, if they did 1 year at APU and then transferred to DMU for 2 years, would they get an APU? Thank you very much. Would they get an APU degree? No, unfortunately, if you transfer out, then you would only get the DMU degree. The Malaysian requirement states that you have to spend at least 2 years in Malaysia to get the degree. So that's going to be a regulatory issue. You could transfer to DMU maybe in the middle, again subject to the terms all aligning, and then return for the final year. You would have done your 2 years for APU, and then you would still get your dual degree. The second one was the current hybrid technology. We answered that one earlier. So that's the second question that's on there. So you don't need to attend classes. You do everything in Malaysia. If you want to travel, you can do, and the student services team will be able to help looking at where those dates actually line up and what opportunities you have. You might prefer to go during the summer than the winter. Liz says it's chilly in the summer. If if you don't like cold weather, you might want to avoid it in the winter. But it is very nice, and if you've not seen snow before, you might be lucky enough and get to see some snow. Okay, the next one is how much is the fee? To tell you the truth, I don't know, because I deal with the quality side. So the student services team will be able to provide that information to you. I want to make sure, as does Liz, that the programs that we deliver are appropriate, that you're able to get jobs at the end. So I don't actually know how much it costs. I'm very sorry. Next one, I'll let Liz answer the next one. I can answer it, but I want to save my voice. Are there any differences between a locally acquired DMU degree and a DMU degree that is acquired through the dual program?
None whatsoever. Nothing.
Sorry, I wanted to cough as well.
I mean, I know it's a simple answer, but there is absolutely no differences between the DMU degree on campus and the DMU degree at APU.
Okay, another one. I guess we could have had Richard help to answer this one because he's the engineering guru. So the next question we have here is, for a 4-year study, Bachelor of Engineering at APU, I'll obtain a master's degree. Okay, I think will obtain a master's degree or bachelor's degree from DMU, since DMU's bachelor's degree lasts for 3 years. You actually get.
It will be a master's, MEng.
Yeah. And is there anything that you need to add about the MEng side of things?
No.
Okay. So it would be an MEng that you would obtain from DMU, because the MEng is a 3+1 in the UK. In Malaysia, it's a 4-year undergraduate degree. Both are Washington Accord anyway. So you've got that Washington Accord status, which allows you to move to any of the countries that are signatories to that Washington Accord, and that qualification will be accepted. Yeah, trying to think of some of the countries. Hong Kong, I know, is obviously Malaysia, UK, Australia, and lots of others. So you could go along with that qualification and nobody will say anything. They'll say, right, you've got the degree, it's Washington Accord status, we accept it. So the second question was asking the same one. So I understand that for engineering course, we get an MEng, yes. Can I further do, can I then go on to do further studies at the PhD level at DMU? Yes.
Yes.
You certainly can.
Because that is, I mean, PhD entry is around ability, but also having that MEng from DMU will actually assist you to go on to the PhD. Yes.
Okay. The next one, a very good question. I was talking to somebody about semester abroad programs a little bit earlier. So if we go to the next question, which is from Jason Lee. Okay. Oh, okay. It appeared and gone. Basically, the question is: could a student go to DMU for a semester, transfer the credit back, and complete the degree in APU? And the answer is yes. Again, you've got to make sure that you're studying the right modules. If you're doing an engineering degree and decide to go to DMU and do a semester of art and design, that's not going to work. So it obviously has to be the same degree or study area that you're on. But yes, you can travel to DMU. Again, the semesters have to align and have to fit in with your schedule. But yes, you can bring that credit back to Malaysia, and that will then go into your degree, because this is a dual degree. So it doesn't really matter whether you're here or there, the credit is the credit. Okay, what's our next one? Okay, again, it's a long question, so I have to read it first before I could work out what it was actually asking. No, okay, the master's degree in the UK will be fine. Yes, you can say you've got the master's degree from the UK, because it is. Okay. Okay, the last one we've got. Are we running out of time? Well, we're slowly running out of time. Okay, so the question there: can you do 2 years in Malaysia and the final year in England to get both the degrees? It meets the 2-year requirement. So under the dual degree provision, then yes, I don't think there'd be any issue from the DMU side of this.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so again, that's another possibility. And then there's another question about tuition fees. Pass. I'm afraid I can't answer that one. The student services team will be able to tell you more about the fee structure. There are no more questions that have come through.
Right. Thank you so much, Prof. Andy and Prof. Elizabeth. Okay, for about the tuition fees, of course, you can reach out to our counselors so that we can advise you further on the fees and also on the other pathways, progression pathways. Now it's time for us to wrap up our session today. I'm so grateful for your time and I hope that you find this session interesting. Before we end this session, Prof. Andy and Prof. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add on?
Liz, let you go first.
No, nothing to add, but I just really want to thank everybody for listening to us, and hopefully it's been informative.
Yes, and from me, again, another thank you to Liz for starting early in the morning and joining us today. I know she's busy doing lots of things, so it was very good of her to join us. Thank you to everybody for watching, and well, we do look forward to seeing you hopefully whenever the next intake is, probably September, I think, somewhere around about September. So yes, if there are any questions, contact us. We're here to help. But thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
It's really indeed informative. We are going to have the next session with the topic of Living the Revolution, how digital marketing and new media is becoming the new norm. Stay tuned and follow our Facebook page for more updates. Thanks everyone for joining us live today. I'm your host, Regine, signing off. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.